Hey, welcome back to Brick System Brothers. My name's Nathan Masters. Today's video, I want to talk a little bit about this building. Now, this might seem familiar. This used to be a set, and if you're thinking it looks like a modular, you are correct. This was one of the earliest modulars that LEGO released before they officially had a modular lineup. So this used to be Market Street, set 10190, and it was actually released as a LEGO factory set, and it was released shortly after the Cafe Corner. So Cafe Corner pretty much understood to be the first modular in the series, which is now very popular. A lot of people like to build up their city. And then they released this, which was actually a fan-submitted design that LEGO, much in the same way that they have with ideas products, kind of did a final check and review to make sure everything was up to standard with the model, and then they released it as the set Market Street. So the Market Street set looked like this, and after many years of modifications, my set looks like this. So a little side by side here. 3 floors. The things that are in common that I kind of kept with the model are 3 stackable floors, and these still have the tiles there where you can remove them pretty easily. On the inside, I kept the basement level. So this was something that's not present in every modular. It's kind of been here and there depending on which one you get. But Market Street originally had this very short basement, half basement or whatever. There wasn't really a great way to access it. There was actually another section, like you saw in the picture, which was the actual Market Street. This was just the building. And for a while, that was together. But when I started making modifications to this, that was one of the first things to go in my city. I really wanted to prioritize, the actual building, the fronts of buildings, the facade. When I had my city back then, and there wasn't a lot of actual official sets. Most of it was custom mock buildings. So I found a few pictures from those days. I just wanted to look at a little timeline, and then at some point, I'd like to rebuild Market Street because it's actually, built into the history of LEGO Modulars now, and complete original copies are worth a couple $100. I don't plan to sell it, but I did want to rebuild it and maybe do a review for the channel. Today, just looking a little bit at the history of this set in my LEGO city. 10190 was released in 2007, and I mentioned that it was after the release of Cafe Corner, but double checking here on Brickset, it seems that they were actually both released on the 24th of October that year. So simultaneous release, but factory branding here on Market Street was maybe setting it apart in those early days when we first had this set on shelves. So the 2007 is kind of the start date. I don't think I bought this until late 2008 or early 2009. And the first picture I have is from 2009. So this was my city at that time. It was up on this plywood table. And really on this channel, we've only looked at my previous version of the city, which was a different configuration. So this is going all the way back 12 years now to 2009. Josh and I shared this room, and I had basically this loop of track. I don't think it was even complete at this point, just kind of around the corner, back corner there, and then one street, one row of buildings. And the backs were all open here. So that was probably the first modification I made to the set. If I remember right, this is kind of hazy. When I built this from the instructions, I actually omitted the back walls. And, right out of the box, I had this thing open on the back to kind of match up with everything else that I already had. So, the Market Street part was here. It was accessible. And I also changed out something in the roof. Pretty sure this white plate was not original to the set. Could be wrong, though, looking at, just in the background here. So this would have all been closed off if I had built it from the instructions. I think I did need to put in a support pillar right up there. But everything else, the front of the building was original. At this point, the building still had on the hose fences for the balconies, which was the second thing I changed by 2013. So here's the next picture. The building is now on the other side of the city. I've added a couple more loops of track and a public school, so that's kind of where this building moved, to that side of town. We've lost the market stalls, and we have added brick-built balconies. So I remember that being kind of one of my nitpicks with the set, was those little hoses that were original. I'll pull that picture in again over here, and you can kind of compare. You know, it looks good. It's a nice looking balcony, but I don't remember it being very functional. Like, the doors couldn't really open that well. So that was the next thing I changed when I moved this over. Got rid of the Market Street and added brick-built balconies, and I also filled in the roof area. I took out kind of that stair step section, which, you know, you got to have that. I think that's one of the defining features of the set. So that was gone pretty early on. And this became the owl apartments. So that little black owl that was over here guarding the market stalls kind of moved up here. It became a carving or a statue and perched up on top of the roof, which was now pretty heavily modified. But the lower two, the lower two floors in the basement, still pretty much original to the set, with those spiral staircases going up. Yeah, not really in a great looking part of town though. So the Owl Apartments is maybe some low income housing by 2013. And the next picture is the current city, or what was the current city. I've taken everything down and put it into storage now. So this is 2016, and the Owl Apartments had another modification where I actually brought those balconies all the way out, totally enclosed, but pushed them over to the left side of the building. I took off half of the spiral staircase going up to that front door, and I reworked the roof section. So the front of the roof is 30-degree slopes, and then in line with those balcony sections of the building, there's a much steeper section here, and there's the owl still on top. So kind of a fuzzy picture here. It's all the way in the back corner, but I am glad that I have at least something from the documentation side of things to look back and see this. But yeah, this was kind of my city. I think I got this put together in 2015, so this would have been a year after I started laying out all the track. And this city stayed up until the end of last year, 2020, when I packed everything away. So still at this point, really only these two buildings are based on an official LEGO set. This used to be Market Street, and this is a slightly modified version of the cinema from the town plan set. Everything else here was pretty much custom built. So a couple years after this, I did pick up a few more of the more recent modulars and added those in on this side of town, on these base plates. And so that really, filled out the city quite a bit, and I enjoyed how it was looking there at the end until things got packed up. So yeah, at some point I'll have the city put back together. I'll probably build a new train station, and these buildings are still put together somewhat, but Market Street I think would look really good put back to its original form. So that kind of brings us up to date with this, which was in the city until I took it apart in late 2020 for my kind of just packing up stuff and moving. And I have most of my city buildings still assembled, but they're in the studio up on a shelf, so they're not really on display. I just pulled this out of storage to do this video today, and like I said, maybe the next step here is getting this rebuilt into Market Street. Quite a few of the original pieces are still in the model, but as we saw in those pictures, quite a few things got swapped over the years and extra pieces added in. I might throw this current configuration together as a digital build, kind of a modification to Market Street, but not going to put in too much effort to preserve this much further. I think it's kind of run its course. So that's some of the history for this building. Stay tuned for more content about rebuilding Market Street and maybe eventually a dedicated review. But just looking at some of the parts that were going into this, how it kind of played into the modular buildings in the early years, and just the process of getting this rebuilt. If I can find all the pieces, do a little bit of roundup from my sorted Lego. So we'll see you guys there. Thanks for watching.